Welcome back to State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts, and today we're going to be talking about the Red River rivalry between Texas and Oklahoma. Thank you for tuning in. This is our discussion about the best rivalry in college football between Texas and Oklahoma, in my opinion. We're going to talk about the underdogs here, the University of Oklahoma, the Sooners, led by true freshman quarterback Michael Hawkins Jr. Now, both Oklahoma and Texas have had pretty successful starts to their SEC careers. And, going into the year, a lot of the discussion was that, especially for Oklahoma, that they're not really going to be ready for the SEC. That's a whole new thing other than the Big 12, right? And I just hadn't really bought into the Texas being far, far greater than Oklahoma, just because consistently Oklahoma has been a part of Texas, and they had the second best record in the Big 12 last year. Oklahoma State just got in the championship because they had a better conference record in the Big 12. And then Oklahoma State ultimately lost to Texas, and there was an argument that, hey, the Sooners beat Texas early in the year. Why couldn't they beat the Longhorns again if they had played them in the championship? So the Sooners, there were some people saying that they could have made the playoffs last year, and I understand where it's coming from, but ultimately they didn't. So, we can't talk about what didn't happen. But for the Sooners, they've dealt with a lot of injuries, especially for their wide receiver core. I believe their top 5 wide receivers have dealt with injury all year, and that's been a big part in Jackson Arnold's struggles and having to move on from him to a new quarterback. And their defense, which has for so long, especially under Lincoln Riley, been the biggest flaw for Oklahoma. They would always have a good offense, and then the defense would leave a lot to be desired, and they would get into shootouts, and sometimes they would win, sometimes they would lose, but it wasn't very sustainable. But this year, their defense has been really, really good. Danny Sussman returned, and he's been a great leader on that team. He could have been a first-round pick last year, and he continued to stick with the team, and he's balling out. Billy Bowman, they've got a lot of guys on this defense. So I think Oklahoma has a very good defense that they held Tennessee to their lowest points of the season up to that point. And sure, they lost to Tennessee, but the defense kept them in that game. There were a lot of opportunities where Tennessee should have scored a lot more than they did, but the Sooners' defense was able to hold them, especially in the first half, because Jackson Arnold had 3 turnovers. And in the first quarter especially, we gave them the ball. The Sooners gave them the ball on their half, and Tennessee wasn't able to score. They scored 1 touchdown on those drives. So this Sooners defense is really, really good, and that's what keeps them in games. So if they have a shot against Texas, it's not going to be through the air. It's not going to be through their offense. It's not going to be in a shootout. No, it's going to come down to the grit and grind of their defense. For a second, though. I want to move on to their offense now, because that's where the major question marks are. I believe the defense will show up, but the offense is where you kind of wonder if they're going to be able to keep up with Texas, because even if your defense is able to hold Texas to less than they would normally score, your offense still has to execute, and that's a big reason why they lost to Tennessee. And at the start of the year, Jackson Arnold, 5-star prospect, I believe he was the number 1 quarterback in his class, and he sat behind Dylan Gabriel for a year as a freshman. Then coming into this year as a sophomore, he was expected to do a lot of big things. He played in a bowl game last year, and he threw 3 picks, but he also had 360 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it looked like he had some stuff that he could improve on, but in general, he should be ready to air that ball out for sure. And to start off the year, he wasn't that impressive. The biggest issue with him was his turnovers, and they were limiting Oklahoma's offense in a major way. The defense was doing a lot of heavy lifting the first few weeks. And then ultimately in that Tennessee game, right before the start of the second half, Michael Hawkins Jr. comes in. And then going in halftime, we don't really know who the QB is going to come in. Maybe it was just a short rest for Jackson Arnold, but no. Instead, Mike Hawkins Jr. is the guy, and he led Oklahoma to a couple of scoring drives in the Tennessee game. Ultimately, they couldn't come all the way back because of the hole they dug themselves into. But he looked a lot better, and so now they are rolling with Michael Hawkins Jr., and he led them to a win on the road as a true freshman against Auburn last week. He's a really dynamic dual-threat quarterback coming out of a prestigious high school over in Texas, actually. So he's also got family ties with the Sooners. His dad played for him under Stoops. So for Mike Hawkins Jr., he was a 4-star prospect compared to Jackson Arnold's 5. And in terms of talent disparity and overall potential at their highest level, at their ceiling, sure, Jackson Arnold probably has the edge in that. But for what this Oklahoma team needs right now, and especially going into the Red River Rivalry game, they need Mike Hawkins Jr. Because it's not just about him being safer with the ball. It's also just about his intangibles and his mentality that he brings to the game. You can tell that he really cares about this team and he wants to go out there and do the best that he can for them. He's had multiple flips into the end zone. One didn't count for touchdown against Tennessee, but I believe he had one against Auburn. He's going to fight for those extra yards. He's going to fight for those touchdowns. And that is exactly who we need at the quarterback position right now, because Oklahoma is in need of a leader on the offensive end. They've got Stutzman, they've got Bowman on the defense. But on the offensive end, they're missing their top 5 wide receivers. The O-line has not been good whatsoever. And the running backs can be a little inconsistent at times, so they need a leader. And Mike Hawkins Jr. has the mentality, he has the intangibles. He's exactly what Oklahoma needs going into this Texas game. And that is, if the offense is going to have a chance to keep up with Texas due to what their defense gives them, Mike Hawkins Jr. is the only guy that can lead this Oklahoma Sooners team to have even a shot at victory. He has to be the guy. Jackson Arnold, he's got all the talent in the world, but he isn't what Oklahoma needs right now. And so Oklahoma has the right guy under center for sure if they want to even have a shot against Texas this week. They are heavy, heavy favorites in this matchup. I don't really keep up with betting odds that much. I'm in a pick'em league, and for the first couple weeks, I didn't even know how pick'em worked. I thought we just straight up picked the winner. But, it's also you got to keep them within that score margin on the over-under, right? So, but hey, I'm first in that pick'em league right now. So it's worked out. now I got it figured out, so we're going to do even better. But for Texas, at one point, they were favored by 14.5 points. Which is just a huge margin of victory, especially for two teams ranked in the top 22 SEC teams in one of the bigger rivalries in college football. They're expecting Texas to show up and dominate this game. And up to this point, it's been really, really understandable why. Now, when Texas and Oklahoma went into the SEC, there was an expectation that it was going to be a learning curve, especially for Oklahoma. But I had felt that Oklahoma got underrated going into the SEC, and Texas had been a little bit overrated in terms of these two teams hadn't been that far off from each other in terms of their play. So why is Texas going to be so much better than Oklahoma? But up to this year, OU has one loss, and that was to Tennessee, so that is excusable. But Texas is not. They are undefeated so far, and they've looked absolutely dominant. Both teams are showing that they belong in the SEC, but Texas has been doing it on a much bigger level. Even when Quinn Ewers went out, which could have been a death blow, not a complete death blow to Texas, but it's going to hurt to have your starting QB from the past couple years out. Arch Manning came in, and he lit up the scoreboard, and he was really, really good for Texas as well, which is just a testament to how talented this team is, because yes, Arch Manning is a really, really good prospect. He comes from an esteemed family, and in his own right, he's a real, real good player. However, to come in and fill in for the shoes of a really, really solid quarterback in Quinn Ewers, Manning being able to step up is a testament to the talent around him just as much as it is to the talent of the guy himself. But Quinn Ewers is going to start this game. He's back, and he's been a really, really solid quarterback for the Longhorns over the past couple of years. So, do I think he's going to, absolutely light up the scoreboard? No. He had 22 touchdowns, 6 picks last year. He's been on pace to do something somewhere this year, although that injury kind of messed up a little bit. But in general, he's not this elite at the quarterback position. However, he does more than enough to get the job done, and he's a really good quarterback for Texas. So, he's certainly not going to take him out of the game. I don't know how much I trust Ewers if Oklahoma took a really big early lead and then they had to play from behind straight through the arm of Quinn Ewers. However, that should not be the case. And even if it was, Ewers, he's very, very respectable in that position, and he could get the job done. So Texas absolutely deserves to be favored. They've got all the talent in the world. They've got a real good quarterback under center. So it makes sense why they're expected to win by about 14, 15 points. I think it'll ultimately be closer, but Texas has looked dominant so far, and there's a reason that they are ranked number one in the State of the Association. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Nash Roberts.